Hey everyone, and welcome back for another deep dive. This time we are going to be heading to Central Africa,
Yeah,
Rwanda, South Africa, the Congo.
big stuff.
Yeah, things are not looking so good there.
There's a lot going on.
You've been following this a lot closer than I have.
I try to, yeah.
So why don't we just jump right in and you can kind of give us the overview of what's happening over there.
Well, I think the first thing to note is that, this isn't just some kind of little border dispute or anything.
Right.
This is really serious stuff.
Yeah.
You've got Rwanda and South Africa, two of the most powerful countries in the region, really,
Mm,
and they're just going at it right now.
yeah.
Diplomatically, and there's this real fear that it could escalate into something much, much worse.
So it's not just like they're sending out some, angry letters and tweets at each other.
No, no, no.
This is getting pretty serious.
No, I mean, there are accusations flying back and forth. It's all centered around this conflict in Eastern Congo,
Yeah.
but there's so much history there.
Right. Well, you gave me a bunch of articles and reports and stuff to look at. And honestly, even for someone like me who, tries to follow this stuff,
Yeah,
it's really, really complicated. So
absolutely.
maybe the best place to start is with this group, this M23 rebel group.
Right.
Who are these guys?
Right. So the M23, it stands for the March 23 movement,
Okay.
and they are a rebel group that's been operating in Eastern Congo for quite a while now.
Okay.
They're mainly made up of Congolese Tutsis,
Okay.
and they've been fighting against the Congolese government for years.
And so what are they fighting about?
Well, on the surface, they say they're fighting against government corruption,
Mhm.
discrimination against Congolese Tutsis.
Okay.
But, like with a lot of these conflicts, it's way more complicated than that.
Right. Yeah.
There are all sorts of other factors involved: land, resources, power. The M23 has been accused of some pretty horrific things.
Okay.
Human rights abuses, violence against civilians.
Yeah. So not exactly the good guys.
It's a very messy situation.
Okay, so this group, the M23, they've been causing trouble in Eastern Congo for a while.
Right.
But now Rwanda and South Africa are getting involved.
Right, and that's where things get really interesting,
Yeah.
because South Africa is accusing Rwanda of backing the M23.
Publicly.
Oh, yeah!
Wow.
They're saying that Rwanda is providing them with weapons, training, even troops.
Wow, so that's a pretty serious accusation to make against another country.
Absolutely, and Rwanda is not taking it lying down.
Yeah.
They are denying everything.
Of course.
And they're actually accusing South Africa of doing the exact same thing, but in reverse.
Okay, wait, so Rwanda is saying that South Africa is supporting groups that are opposed to Rwanda.
That's exactly right.
Oh, wow, so it's kind of like a blame game.
Yeah, I mean, on the surface, it looks that way,
Ye-
but it's important to remember that there's a lot of history here.
Hmm.
This isn't just some random feud that popped up overnight.
Right.
This goes back decades.
Okay.
And to understand what's really happening now, I think we have to dig into that history a little bit.
All right, so take us back. Take us back. What's the history here?
Well, it all starts with the Rwandan genocide in 1994.
Right.
Hundreds of thousands of Tutsis were killed by Hutu extremists.
It was a horrific event.
Horrible, absolutely.
Yeah.
And after the genocide, a lot of the perpetrators fled across the border into Eastern Congo, which was then called Zaire.
Okay.
And the new Rwandan government, led by Paul Kagame,
Mm-hmm.
they were determined to track them down and bring them to justice.
Okay, so Rwanda sends troops into Zaire
Right.
to go after these genocidaires.
Exactly. And that's really the beginning of this whole mess.
Okay, so then what happens?
Well, Rwanda ends up getting deeply involved in the Congo. They end up supporting a rebellion that overthrows the Zairian dictator Mobutu Sese Seko.
Wow.
And a new government comes to power in Congo, led by Laurent Désiré Kabila.
So Rwanda is basically running the show in Congo at this point.
Well, they have a lot of influence, that's for sure.
Yeah.
But things don't stay peaceful for very long.
I don't know.
In 1998, a new war breaks out in the Congo, what we call the Second Congo War. And this time, it's even bigger and messier than the first one.
So what happened? Who's fighting who this time?
Well, it's a real tangled web.
Yeah.
You've got Rwanda and Uganda on one side, initially supporting Kabila, but then they turn against him.
Oh, wow.
And on the other side, you've got Angola, Zimbabwe, Namibia.
Oh, so multiple countries getting dragged into this.
Oh, absolutely. It becomes this huge regional conflict with all these different countries backing different factions within the Congo.
Yeah, so this is where my head starts spinning a little bit.
Yeah, it's incredibly complicated. But I think the important thing to understand is that this war, the Second Congo War, it just devastated the region.
Yeah.
Millions of people died, either from the fighting or from disease and famine.
And that's what we're talking about when we say history.
Not exactly.
Okay.
You know, these wars, they created this legacy of mistrust and animosity that's still very much alive today.
Right, and we see that playing out right now.
Absolutely.
With these accusations between Rwanda and South Africa.
Exactly. You know, you can't understand what's happening now without understanding that history.
Yeah, and you know, you mentioned earlier that this whole thing could get even worse.
Yeah.
What do you mean by that?
Well, I mean, there's a real fear that this could escalate into a full-blown regional war. You know, with Rwanda and South Africa on opposite sides,
Jeez.
and all these other countries potentially getting drawn in.
So like a World War I type situation where, you know, everyone's got these secret alliances and then all of a sudden
exactly.
it just explodes.
Yeah. And the thing is, the Congo is incredibly fragile right now. You know, they're still struggling to recover from these past wars.
Yeah.
And another conflict would just be catastrophic.
So what can be done? I mean, is there anything that can be done to stop this from happening?
Well, that's the big question, isn't it? I mean,
Yeah.
you know, some people are calling for the international community to get involved. You know, maybe the UN, the African Union, to try to mediate between Rwanda and South Africa.
Right.
Maybe even send in peacekeepers.
Yeah.
But others are saying that that would just make things worse.
How so?
Well, they argue that it would just further inflame tensions, you know, make Rwanda and South Africa feel like they're being ganged up on.
Right. Yeah.
So it's a really tough situation.
So it sounds like there's no easy answers here.
No, not at all.
Yeah.
I mean, you know, at the end of the day, it's up to the leaders of these countries to find a way to de-escalate the situation.
Yeah.
But it's not going to be easy.
It seems like there's just so much bad blood there.
There is, yeah.
And all this history.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So, I mean, I guess all we can do is just watch and see what happens.
Yeah, pretty much.
But it's not looking good.
No, it's not.
Yeah. Well, this has been a really, really insightful deep dive. I think we've covered a lot of ground.
We have.
I definitely learned a lot.
It's a complicated situation.
It is. But I think, you know, even if you haven't been following this as closely as you have, I think you've given our listeners a good sort of overview of what's happening there.
Absolutely.
And, you know, a little bit of that history.
Right.
That helps make sense of what's going on today.
Yeah, it's crucial.
So thank you for that. And thank you to all our listeners out there for joining us for another deep dive. We'll see you next time.
See you then.